Hello, David McMillan here in what would be, I think, the fourth of the Shaun Attwood and David talk about lockdown advice, coronavirus, what's current in the news or what was then, and what to do about it, how to relax about it. Of course, it's all kind of waved off now, but it'll be waving back soon, say some. Are you ready for it? Well, if you're not, watch the next episode, in which we talk about a few interesting things. It's sort of the shadowy amplifier is kind of a dark amp or something like that.
Do you want me to start it so you can rip the piss out of me on camera?
Yes, I think I've got as much sound as I'm likely to get out of this thing. Oh, wait on. Maybe I should. No, that won't work. Yep, no, it's all right. I'm happy. I'm going to go with this because this is, as long as you can hear me, it's fine. Okay, are we recording there, Shaun?
Here we go. It is the latest coronavirus chat with David McMillan, international trafficking mastermind who was dumb enough to end up. Yeah, have I lost you?
No, sorry. I just might run. You've frozen on my screen for some reason. I can hear you.
Yeah, you're back. You're back. You went. Should we start again?
Okay, go again. Yeah.
All right then. Here we go again. Friday evening coronavirus chat with David McMillan, international smuggling mastermind who unfortunately served almost 2 decades, incarcerated on 5 continents, death row twice, escaped from death row in Thailand, 2 books out, Escape and Unforgiving Destiny. He has his own YouTube channel. If you go in the description box, you can watch his own content and subscribe to his channel, and you can also see the link to his books. And we've got one right here, Unforgiving Destiny and Escape.
Okay, well, that's good that you've got all of that. I was kind of missing it from the bookshelf there, and though I don't know whether I should really be associated with you these days. You are the shadowy amplifier. Now, who called you that?
The Center for Countering Digital Hate or something like that.
Wow. You know, the longer the title, the more opposite it is. For example, if we have the Democratic Republic of Congo, well, it's barely a republic and it's certainly not democratic. Now, when they throw up the idea of the Center for, it's as though there's some kind of broad group that's all acting together, and they're the center. Well, that was what Moscow used to call itself when referring to its agents, but I'm sure there's no link there. So are they, how do they style themselves? Lefties, right, in the middle? What?
It's quite Orwellian, and supposedly funded by some big players who I won't name. But one of their supporters who's tweeting like crazy is this mathematician TV presenter from Countdown.
Yeah, I know. I always thought she was quite cute looking. What's her name now? I forget. But she was
Rachel something?
Yeah, that's right, Rachel. And I think she was on one of those gadget shows at one stage, wasn't she? I don't know, something about some future tech stuff. She's supposedly quite a good mathematician. And in fact, it's a very peculiar show, Countdown, anyway, isn't it? And really, it's kind of English. It's a bit like the style of the Archers. You can imagine its format goes back to World War II or something like that. So how does it feel to be targeted?
Well, she's got 600,000 plus followers on Twitter, and she's harboring them, channeling their energy towards a hit list of collaborators with David Icke. And I am number 2 on the hit list.
Well, I watched with interest at breakfast this morning. Your rather sad it was. you know, I kind of imagine somebody in a war crimes trial, you know.
Collaborating.
Yes. Oh, no, it wasn't war crimes that it reminded me of. There was a German prosecutor during the Second World War called Streicher. And those who had offended Adolf and the gang, they would be sent to trial. And the ones who collaborated in his assassination attempt, when they were in court, they were given extra big trousers, but no belt. So they constantly had to have one hand clutching at their front to keep their pants up. And it was a bit sad. But really what we have now, I was trying to match comparisons to the Star Chamber and the Inquisition and hunting for heretics. But really, even at that, you had a defendant. I mean, you had an advocate. It wasn't a very good advocate in the Inquisition, it must be said, probably of the standard of some of the lawyers I've had, I would think. But nonetheless, you're entitled to one. But under this new way of doing things, you don't get the opportunity to say, but I'm just the messenger.
You just wake up and your YouTube channel is gone with no warning.
Is that the way they do it, YouTube?
Yeah, apparently. Or it's demonetized or deplatformed. If you deplatform, you wake up and it's just not there.
Wow. Instagram were kind of famous for, I used to like too quickly. He that loves too often, all of that. But liking too quickly on Instagram can get you blocked. They decide that you couldn't possibly like something if you click too quickly, and all you're doing is liking everybody, like some kind of viral meme. Though we really have to stop drawing comparisons with viral things, because it's not really good. Now, what do you know about the chief honcho at the center?
He just looks like he's not a very happy person.
I see. He sounds, I haven't had a chance to check him out, but he does sound like somebody I met in a food line at a prison years ago. He was complaining about Plenty of Fish, a dating site, and that he could have had it for himself. What I mean is this: it's somebody who is a kind of, in a parasitic way, feeding off others by complaining about them and saying it's all terribly. Well, the word unfair, fairness doesn't come into it, but you're just wrong for having anything to do with. I mean, I know about lepers. I've been a leper myself, Shaun, for many years now, and you have taken the brave step of running me in a few interviews, and well, I suppose my name can't be blackened any more than it is, and yours is pretty, well, a shade of grey, I think, there, Shaun, isn't it? If not blackened. But I think we can rely, can't we, as always, on greed holding the fort with YouTube. If it probably hurt them a bit to not take advantage of the Ike series and the Ike dilemma and I Like Ike. That I Like Ike comes from a badge I've got somewhere in the loft, which is actually referring to the presidential campaign of Dwight Eisenhower, who was known as Ike. The spelling's a bit different, but I think they had similar beliefs, as a matter of fact. Not so much as Douglas MacArthur. He wanted to nuke North Korea with 26, count them, 26 atomic bombs. So I don't think you really have to do anything. I mean, are you making any defensive moves?
Well, the YouTube channel was challenged almost 2 years ago over a situation with my first podcast guest. and I was doxxed, dogpiled, threatened, death threatened.
This was Jamie Morgan
Kane. Yeah. And I ended up having to get a lawyer, and it was this fiasco that went on for over a month. My home address, bank details, all that stuff was floating around the internet. So the banking situation was messed up for quite a while. I don't think this guy at the head of this anti-hate center, digital hate center, has the capacity to unleash havoc like the previous campaign against me. So having been through things in my life, it's I'm accustomed to challenges, let's say, and I feel that when you're over the target, people challenge you more, and as things expand, people are always trying to trip you up. It's just part of the course, and it's probably a sign of success.
I think you should take it as a compliment, really. If a group is okay, it's Ike's the villain. He's the sort of Hitler figure, I suppose. Where would you fit in? No, you're definitely not a Himmler. Perhaps Dr. Joseph Goebbels. I mean, he was an educated man, quite a populist. There was, in a roundabout way, that all ties up because there was somebody wrote a biography of Joseph Goebbels and couldn't get it published, even because Germany was against it. I think, it was only a couple of years ago that Mein Kampf was allowed to be sold again. Eventually everything dies down. But, and of course, really, people want to know more about what David Icke was saying, I suppose. He'll just have to find some other way of doing it.
Well, they've got Brian Rose of London Real as the #1 collaborator.
Right.
Who was Hitler's right-hand man?
Well, it was Joseph Goebbels, really.
So they've got Brian Rose as Joseph Goebbels, so I would be whoever comes after that. As the Nazi collaborator.
I suppose that must be Himmler, I guess. He was kind of quiet. It was always said
wasn't Himmler's head shaped like mine as well?
Yes, he wasn't blessed with an awful lot on top of it. He did have the sense to carry around a cyanide capsule, which he used by it was a British officer who came in and was kind of astonished when his quarry just said, "Oh, don't mind if I just have a little snack here out of this silver container I've been carrying around." They all had it. In fact, who was the chief of the aviation? Hermann Goering, the art collector. Yes, he cheated the hangman in the last bits of it by crushing the capsule. They were searched, but they kept it. In jailhouse tradition, they always kept it up their bum. Though I don't think Joe Goebbels did. He used to keep it in his cigarette case. But we have strayed a bit.
I don't anticipate committing Harry anytime soon over this Imran, whatever his guy is.
No.
I am being warned that announcing my jogging schedule online is not advisable, and that Prince Andrew's guys might be waiting behind a tree one of these days.
Well, you've got a point. There are a bit of a list of people who probably want to have a private chat to you, but that means you're doing your job, I guess. I don't quite know. Has anybody said anything about freedom of speech? I mean, most of the people that are moaning, a lot of them are media people to some extent. They have outlets, they have a screen presence somewhere, somehow. So it's so drifting off, isn't it? It's a bit like saying, well, we won't watch ITV because it ran an interview with such and such. So,
well, if the Department of Peace is about war, I'm sure a center for anti-digital hate is a extension of totalitarian clamping down on freedom of speech.
Oh yes, it really is done without really recourse to law, so that there's no place for challenging it. But still, I think it's, I think it'll drift off because it's a one target kind of hit. I can't see where he's got to go after this, so I would think in a few months we won't barely remember his name. So I
Exactly.
don't
And
think
if you go on the Twitter, they're just backslapping each other,
yes.
all over the deplatforming of Ike, and trying to take credit for that.
Do you know what is propped up as an underground market almost overnight? It is blood plasma from recovered coronavirus patients. That is, of course, you can't stick somebody else's blood in you, but you can take the sort of watery part, the plasma, and in fact, if somebody's lost volume rather than blood itself, they'll use the plasma. It's kind of clear. But from patients that have recovered from the disease, their blood plasma is full of antibodies. So if you're suffering from it, it's a quick hit, quick fix. It's just sort of come up in hospitals, but I see already. I mean, can you imagine buying your blood on a black market? I can't really see how. I mean, would you still have to meet the guy in a car park? Or, I certainly hope it's not going to be on the 11th floor of some high-rise block of flats in the stairwell. I mean, my days of hanging around there are kind of gone,
So how does that work then? What's the mechanism?
Well, there is no, because it's the plasma is kind of neutral in terms of it doesn't set off a immune reaction from your own body. You can take anybody's plasma, but the antibodies are still kicking around in there, and they're in those plasma cells, and they go to work attacking the virus directly because they know it. They're like, people have been in training for it, these little antibodies. So it's kind of natural. But I think, what, I still can't get a very clear figure, and I've looked for out of, I don't know, let's say 1,000 people who've had the virus, how many of them kick into that deadly immune reaction and die. That figure is, I mean, they can say it, the testing hasn't been complete, so we don't know. But that, I suspect, is probably a very low number, because today the UK, I mean, kind of hit the record for European fatalities at over 30,000. Of course, this is proportional to population, so it doesn't really necessarily mean. I think, is it Italy? Per capita, it's probably still a little worse there. But it sort of spread around. I think when it eventually, when the figures come out, a lot more people would have been running around with it without any major effects. I suppose you've come across have you noticed another social phenomenon? The last week, every second person I've met has decided that, well, I had it in January. Yes, I had a terrible cold and all of that. I think it's a kind of virus fatigue that sets in, and the way to deal with it is to say, well, that's last year's fashion. It might be from, apparently there's a verified case from December in France, and it's quite early, isn't it? I mean, that was, I can't remember when I started thinking, I mean, not that I'm in the smuggling trade anymore, Shaun, those 8 years ago, but I do tend to think of when terrorism started. I thought airports got to be difficult, and I thought, wow, that's going to spread, and there'll be closures of airports, but there could be opportunity for those still in the business, which I'm not. But I think, would this say there was a 14-day quarantine on any travels? Would that put you off traveling?
Yes, it would. I'm not much of a traveller anyway. And I noticed a funny thing today. I was getting my groceries in Sainsbury's and I wanted to go over to the Satsumas. But there was a lady, everybody's like looking at everyone, keeping the distance. But there was a lady just having a telephone conversation. She's just on her phone, speaking to her boyfriend or something. Right there where I wanted to get my Satsuma. So I'm just like staring at her and she's just on the phone for ages and ages and ages and ages. And I'm like, when is she going to move? And then the same thing happened like 10 minutes later on the yogurt aisle. She was right there, stood in front of the yogurts on her phone, still having this bloody conversation.
No, people do it. I had a similar thing in B&Q this morning. One of the essential parts of my renovation of the houses business was in places like that. And there was a long, huge line of mostly, over 50, maybe over 60-year-olds lined up to do a bit of DIY. But I had a trade card, so I used the side entrance. Join everything. It's always worth having a card to get in the back door. You never know when you'll need it. But the old pensioners had damn well cleaned out the paint section. I was looking for a floppy roller. Couldn't get one anyway. I mean, what do they think they're doing? Rag rolling the tabletops or something? Kind of and they did clag up the aisles because some of them even brought their carers with them, which is kind of a novelty. I always pictured a carer sort of exhausted, dragging themselves from one house to another, having some kind of walking in and smelling feces everywhere, having to mop it up and being vomited on as you try and spoon feed some toothless old crone. But this wasn't an accurate picture. There was rather well-dressed carer and a clearly caked-up, wealthy old lady who was doing a bit of wallpapering, I think they wanted to do. So people are adapting. I think where people will get a bit irritable will be... Don't you think it's true, Shaun, that people just about anywhere around the world can handle a complete disaster? War breaks out, you've a massive lockdown, show your face, you'll get shot or catch something horrendous. Those zombies are out there, it's purge night every night. We can handle that. But if the rules get fiddly, like, Shaun, it's your number plate is XYZ666. I always thought that was an odd one for you to take, but still. And because it ends in a 6, you've only got Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays. So, like they do some of the traffic in India, I'll bet those rules are followed. I think they might be in Singapore. But so those kind of petty things where we'll get the rebellions happening. So I think the most difficult stage will be coming up in a couple of weeks. They're dithering, aren't they, the government?
Yes, they are. We're over the hump, but it's just extending. Do you have a propensity for country walks? Because I've noticed some unusual behaviour there as well.
Is it called dogging or something? I'm not quite... What kind of unusual behaviour?
If you go on a regular walk in the countryside,
yes,
and there is a narrow passageway, a bottleneck, for example.
Well, what is the decorum there?
People are coming this way, and you're coming that way, and it's really unusual because people behave so differently. Some people really jump out the way into the bushes to the side of you, and they're like that.
Oh, well, no, there we are.
Pass me!
Don't give it to me, you diseased bastard. I've got that asset of being ancient, so people assume I've got it. I'm rotten with it. Come within, vague, cheap aftershave range of me, and you're gone. And it's not just any ordinary one. Apparently, Shaun, there's 100 mutations found and announced today by a university somewhere in, I think it was Oxford or Cambridge. They're usually ahead of the game than Oxford. Oxford do the talk, but Cambridge does the walk, And there are those people who live in fear. They will get out of your way. And though on a country walk, the odds, even with unless it was a very still day with no breeze, the odds of actually getting a lungful of it on a country walk are pretty remote. But and you get certain people who feel it is their country walk, don't they? Their bit of path. And the dog walkers, that is, they feel they've got extra rights too. I think there's some guy in my area renting out his dog so that people have got territorial control of the footpath by having the mutt on the lead.
I saw a woman with a baby walk past another woman, and the woman with the baby didn't get out of the way, and the other woman just goes, "You cannot be serious."
Really?
And just huffed and walked away. Yeah, it's like, it's so rude.
Though the baby thing has got a history, hasn't it? There is great competition amongst mothers for the Ferraris of the baby carriage. Some big fat wheels on them, high canopy. It's kind of like an alien creature in some horror film. The carriage sits up there, and somewhere is a little dot of a child, but it's the carriage that gets eyed off. Very competitive. And on a bus, it's a complete disaster because they just block up the entire thing. And you're supposed to put up with this screaming snot-nosed brat. There was one, I was on a bus a while back, and this was before the now you in London anyway. If you get on a bus, you take the back door. The whole front section's roped off with crime scene sort of tape, and I don't think anybody pays anymore. People won't like going back to that, but that doesn't look like it's happening for a while. But somebody with a baby carriage, she kept feeding him. And I would say, why has she got the kid out on a bus in the middle of an epidemic? But still. But there was no killing this kid. He was kicking the passenger in the back of the seat in front of him. And no matter how many Watsits and ovals and nib-nobs that she gave this horrid little creature, he wouldn't stop it. He might grow up to be president or prime minister, I would think. Oh, did you catch the song that was playing behind our dear Donald Trump as he visited a mask-making factory yesterday? It was, I don't know whether it came over the factory Muzak system. It was Live and Let Die.
Oh, yeah. God.
Paul McCartney's classic there.
I did hear one doctor say that wearing a mask is like trying to keep a mosquito out of a chain link fence.
Wow, that's a good analogy, isn't it? No, chain link fence would not do it. It'd be sort of, chicken wire against wasps or something, wouldn't it? But,
when I was in Sainsbury's today,
yeah.
They have now like plastic wall tunnel things. So when you go to the checkout, you have to go into one of these plastic wall tunnel things, depending upon whether you're going to like a person at a till or you're going to the self-checkout. Yeah. So everybody is just completely in different plastic wall tunnel things.
That'd be spooky. It'd be a bit like some kind of futuristic airport where you walk down a passageway and it examines your rectal passages for contraband or something. I suppose. You can imagine part of that.
Are you a man who's been through that?
Well, yes. Though I'm pleased to say if any officer of the law or anybody else for that matter wants to examine my rectal passage, that's worth fighting for. And I don't care what's on their side, but a couple of us are going to hospital, and we may have rectal damage or not, but it won't be easy for them.
In one of your incarcerations, you never suffered the finger wave, did you? It was ruled illegal in Arizona. The guard
Really?
just put the rubber glove on, stuck it up your bum, and it ended up with sexual assaults. Surprise, surprise.
Well,
So,
it is really, yeah. So they stopped it there.
It was ruled unconstitutional or something in Arizona. So I just missed that when I got in trouble.
Well, yeah. Though in the UK they've introduced a lot of quite sophisticated machines to detect the little phones that people go in with. I think a couple of people I've known have a kind of excuse me, a kind of going to jail pack. If there's a big unmistakable banging at the door with the sledgehammers, and they look out and our old friends are there, woof, that goes straight up, and it has all the life-saving things one might need in there. A little roll of cash for buying things until your account money comes through, because that's slow. A few pills to wake up, a few pills to go to sleep, some of the things that people might want in there, and a thumb-sized telephone for that essential calls people feel they must make, along the lines of, now go there and get rid of it. They're coming, I
had a guy write to me from a prison in Japan once, and he said that the bum search was performed with a glass rod.
Really?
Yeah.
And how were they supposed to see anything? Or how were they supposed to know what was in there? Oh, if it hit something solid. Right. Well, I suppose it could have been worse. At least it wasn't performed with, what were they called by their old William Burroughs, the beat writer, Steely Dan 1, 2, and 3, the steel dildos that he named such. I didn't know that for years, that the band was named after William Burroughs' choice of names for those things.
These are the things that the Centre for Anti-Hate should be campaigning against, really.
That's true. I mean, it's quite hateful to have a glass rod shoved up your bracket. Especially, though it could be an opportunity as well. I think the US president was suggesting bright light irradiating one's body. If you could, I think he said, if you could get it in there somehow. Well, there you are. That's the solution. The glass rod. That would do it. I think.
And the blood of the people who've previously had it. The antibodies.
Yeah. Oh, yes. But the antibodies actually work, as opposed to the glass rod.
David McMillan's antibody cure.
Yes. I
Peddled by the Grim Reaper's diary keep himself. Come and buy my blood.
Wow. Yeah. I suppose I should have realized that was going to happen one day, Shaun, that I'd end up on a street corner somewhere selling blood. I expected it to be my own, but here we are. It's just antibody-rich plasma.
Pity it's banned from being traded on eBay. You can't sell blood or organs.
Really?
You could have had a new career ahead of you.
I could have, though. You can order from China and from India tissue-matched organs. It's quicker from China because, unfortunately, it comes from prisoners. The prisoners apparently they go in thinking that there's something wrong with them. They certainly feel sick enough, and they come out of surgery minus a kidney, or possibly two, if they were a rare blood group. I don't know. Would you, if you needed an organ, do you think you'd be particularly fussy where it came from?
I had a friend in America who had hepatitis C at quite an advanced stage. And he was always joking that he was going to go on eBay and buy a Chinese prisoner's organ, and that would save his life. Sadly, the guy did get released and died within a couple of years.
Well,
The prison medical's not very advanced. They just rather you die and a new prisoner take the bunk, and they don't have to pay your medical.
yeah, I've always found that as far as bad prison doctoring's concerned, in the Western countries it exists, but you don't get it, bad or not. In Thailand, as you know, that I've written, you could actually effectively buy tickets to operations in Bangkok Central Prison's operating theatre. The operations would be kind of done mostly by the trustee that was there, with the doctor saying something. They were always interesting. I knew a very, brave Nigerian guy who went in over some huge kidney stone that was blocking him. And, well, I shouldn't be too critical. That kidney stone came out. He died 48 hours later of septicemia, but, you know, it looked a good operation from ringside anyway. It was kind of a kind of waxworks museum theatre of horrors down there. There was the man who had something or other wrong with his legs, and had kept the great chunks of necrotic skin that had fallen off him, and it was like bark on his legs that he kept taped up there for effect. Yeah. So, and I found on going further sort of to the west, India, Pakistan, that the medical services, you get a choice of diseases you can have. But if you live through it, I think you're immune from most things.
During your 2 decades of incarceration, did you have any medical crises?
I mean, I've always had trouble with kidney stones. It's not the huge ones that cause you trouble. It's the little bastards of about 5 millimeters that dislodge from the kidney and run down what's about, 2 feet of tubing heading for the bladder. Now, that tubing's only as thick as the inside of a biro tube. And so when something big tries to get down there, it goes over 3 humps. I mean, I know this stuff in detail because when it gets jammed, it's rather like a medieval water torture. You remember at school seeing those pictures of some poor bugger tied up in some way and having water forced down his throat, and then having a leather thong tied around his willy. And I remember thinking, I don't know about you, I suppose that'd feel like you just really desperately wanted to pee. How bad that could be. Very bad is the answer. End up screaming, crawling around. It's compared to the pain of childbirth. And I had a bit of a twinge in Bangkok, but fortunately in Bangkok there's plenty of painkillers around. Not the obvious one, heroin. There's plenty of that. But heroin's a bit moreish.
Can you clear this up then? Is it an old wives' tale that you can just wank them out, those kidney stones?
Well, I certainly would have tried if I thought there was any chance of. Unfortunately, the geography of one's innards, there's no connection between those tubes. They go past each other and in the prostate band and wave hello, when all those little what was it? A friend of mine used to call them half sailors, seamen, heading off. And Woody Allen used to do quite a good gag about all the all those little sperm taking their chances out there, hit and miss. What is it? 100,000 swimming gamely towards that egg, and maybe one will do its job. And to get in, to give its little bit of DNA to this huge egg, by comparison, it's got to blow its head off. There's a kind of a semi-explosive tip that gets through the the jelly outer layer of that human egg, and so it gets in there. Not in good shape, it has to be said.
And if people want to watch that, there's a video on YouTube called "The Journey of the Sperm."
Is there? Well, I think it's about 100,000 try, and one will be lucky. But it does kind of show you how, from a woman's point of view, we are a bit insignificant. I mean, they've got this huge egg business going on, and 9 months of running the factory, as it were. And what do? We just throw a couple of strands in there to give the poor child all those bad characteristics that the mother said, well, I knew you'd be like your father. So, well, how far away do you think the great vaccine is, and what's it worth on the open market?
It's as well as the subject of...
Oh, that, yes.
This is also now something that can't be discussed on YouTube. In a negative fashion, let's say.
I mean, negative, I think hopeful, yes. We are all hopeful. I'll have to ask you when we finish this, the parameters of this slight against my probably incorrect, but it doesn't stop me from rabbiting on about medical concepts of which I know nothing except having watched Thai sub-street criminals in jail operate on cats and each other's dicks. That's probably the extent of my direct training, but from another point of view, as you get older, you kind of take an interest in these things.
Is that a rehearsal for their own operations? They practice on a cat before they do it to themselves?
I think it is training in skill with the 1,000,001 uses for a sharpened toothbrush handle, which does most jobs there that surgery requires. Oh, they have little blades from shavers and things for the fine, delicate parts of the operation. And were there in the Arizona prison, did people have a homemade tattooing guns, and were they frowned upon?
Oh, absolutely. It's every area has its own tattooist getting the hustle on. And right. You were allowed to purchase a Walkman stereo, which has a battery operated
Are you talking
motor.
about a cassette player, Shaun?
Yeah, those little cassette players. Yeah. You were allowed to purchase one of them with your little headset, clear tech, so you couldn't hide contraband in it, clear plastic. So you got the battery operated motor, which they attached to a pen casing.
Mm-hmm.
Voila.
Yes.
And then perhaps put a guitar string in the casing.
What does that do? A bit of music while you're being in pain, or what?
You got the battery-operated motor here, which moves. The string with an...
Oh, that's just to get a bit of vibration going.
And then the metal guitar string attached to a needle.
Really?
So the vibration gets the needle going?
I'm surprised they allowed guitar strings, because in Australian prisons, anyway, the last guitar strings I saw were embedded in the necks of several people who had fell from favour.
Yeah, the guitar strings were kind of like a holdover from previous prison generations. They weren't allowed anything new in.
I guess that, well, at least we've got music with the harmonica. Any blues musicians where you were?
No, but I do love watching that guy go and sing in the California prisons. What's his name? Was it Johnny Cash? Folsom?
Yes. He. Yeah. I think if guitars were to be banned, though they do allow plastic strings, but you can't get, is it the G string, the bass string? That's got to be metal.
I had a transgender prisoner friend of mine who made a beaded G string.
Really? I wonder what sort of sound that made.
She also melted plastic into sex toys.
Now that shows a bit of skill. And also, it's astonishing in a prison what can be cut with a craft knife, purportedly for making cuddly toys to send to the little ones. But apart from the obvious, carving people up, with enough effort, some very heavy things. I met a real old prisoner, an old lag, just about had, those arrows on his striped shirt. He was so old. But he showed me a trick with, how's it work? You take two knives, I'm just there, and you bang the cutting surface against each other and make ridges up and down it. And then you go for the bar and saw back and forward. And of course, you've only got about a minute before it all flattens out again. But it does make an appreciable cut on a bar. I tried it once. So you go and do that again and keep going. If you've got the patience of, a Stephen King character or something like that from Shawshank, I suppose you could get through after about 20 years or something. Oh, and famously, dental floss was banned in prisons. And not because dental hygiene was not top of their list, absolutely top. But I think it was a Colombian drug lord, was found in a nightclub somewhere around in Bogota many years ago. And a reporter said, well, how did you get out of prison? You're supposed to be doing 20 or something. He said flippantly, now I cut through the bars. With what? Oh, dental floss. Now that, believe it or not, reached the security office of the UK Prisons Department, and dental floss became banned. Because they'd heard that if you put kitchen cleaning powder over the dental floss, it makes it able to cut through bars. Well, it was a load of nonsense, but isn't it astonishing? And I think I'm thinking of the centre. I don't know why that group comes to mind, but it's astonishing how absolute rubbish gets embedded in somebody's brain, and they act upon it. But do they act because of genuine belief or just opportunity? Tell us, viewers, what you think of that. I've been a bit remiss too, Shaun. Somebody gave me a list of very good questions to put to ourselves. And his name is Agg. And Agg, I haven't forgotten your questions, but time has not been my friend, as usual. In fact, Shaun knows this because he made a very practical offer to ensure that my audiobooks got up there. But the vanity of the scoundrel knows no boundaries, and I thought, no, there'd be something missing without my voice. So I did spend the early hours of last weekend getting through some of it. But those questions, AG, will actually print out. Because if I dare touch anything on the screen at the moment, this kind of contraption of endless refining will collapse and I'll disappear and the computer will catch fire, no doubt. But okay, did you recall any comments that people have asked?
From last week? Because we told them to put their questions in the comments, didn't we?
Yeah, then there are, I think it was from there I saw them, or perhaps from the week before.
Do you want me to grab them real quick?
Well, if you've got some, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll let you talk to the viewer while I just turn my laptop on. Hold on a second.
Okay. And people, let me tell you about Shelley Luther from Dallas. She has a hairdressing salon called Salon à la Mode. And she has got herself in trouble, and she's in court charged with violating the closure of non-essential businesses by having her hairdressing salon open. But she's not paying the fine. Why? Because she wants to make a point. What's that point? Well, I'm Shelley, and I want to be famous. I think that's a point, because it's only a $5,000 fine. So, but she's got herself in the news, and I guess. But I do like that thing in the US, our American friends. don't like to be told what to do. There's a difference. People in the UK don't like to be told what to do either, and what we do is just ignore it. But in the US, it's free speech. It's a much more media-friendly world. Don't get banned for saying everything. And so Shelley, whose name? Oh, Shelley Luther. She is famous for 15 minutes for defying that law. But I suppose if you ask yourselves how many of the lockdown or restriction laws you've broken, I've broken one every day, I think, yes. If you do it very publicly, you could get into trouble. A top scientist here has had to resign because he broke some law. And I think there was a politician, well, there would have been a politician in every country in the world who got caught going to his summer house or her beachfront place and had to step down for it. How are you doing there, Shaun? Found anything?
You've got a commendation for your story about the snails and a request for any further insect stories.
Well, I'll research that one, Shaun, but I will just mention this. Do you know that the internet, the World Wide Web, became famous in its broad scope by including people with various perversions? And this one, supposedly, there was a website or something close to it, a kind of chat thing, dialogue box, whatever, for people who got their thrills from standing and crushing cockroaches. Nothing else, no other insect, not standing on rodents or ants. It had to be a cockroach. And I mean, you would have been those guys would have loved to get into the prison you were in Arizona, but that was cockroach heaven in there, wasn't it? They would have been a perpetual state of bliss, I would think. Tap dancing over it. So, well, I guess so. And somebody else said that they thought well, it was twofold. Somebody liked a clear explanation of how evolution works, and somebody else said, I'm going to hell for it because it never happened. All animals were... but he's a regular correspondent now, that guy.
I've got a question.
Yes. From
Raleigh Felsman. David, what do you think happened to Christopher Flannery?
Chris Flannery was, in Australia, what would you call it? Maverick, renegade, criminal. He was pretty much an all-rounder. He would kind of do anything, but he was most famous as a hitman, of course. What made him difficult was that he also kind of worked for a few bent policemen who had their own killings to organize, and some of them had given him robbery targets. Now, Chris was so independent-minded, he thought when it was coming to an end and he was told to stop, he wouldn't. So he was executed, and he was executed by, as I understand it, somebody who'd, I won't name him, but somebody who'd been retired as a scallywag and bank robber, but somebody whom the police knew would keep his mouth shut. And that's actually quite a good recommendation. If the police swear that you'll keep your mouth shut, and they'll actually come to you with... there was a few Australian villains of that caliber that even the police accepted. And I tell you what, I think he's dead now, but Dennis Allen, a famous Australian crook, I knew the guy well. He was so trusted to keep his mouth shut. A big lawyer I know that ended up the only way the client could pay him was in a couple of kilos of cocaine. That lawyer had no hesitation in going to Dennis, and you know how cautious they are. They wouldn't even say anything. Have you always trusted your lawyers?
Yeah, my lawyer was recommended to me by the New Mexican Mafia. they said he was a loophole lawyer. If I ever got in trouble, contact him. And he did find a loophole for a first-time non-violent, non-US citizen. There was a protracted 26 months legal battle. It cost $100,000 to get him, but he was worth it. Otherwise, I'd still be in prison right now. We've got a question right here from Samboy666.
I know him well. Yes.
And the question is not from him, it's from Happy Quails.
I know. I think it's a she. And even though for some reason the statistics say it's 100% male viewership, there are a few girls out there. Well, and what does Happy Quail say?
Liz Lindenbauer said this was very interesting for a number of different reasons. It's been great to rethink your life. There's an emotional shift, including myself. But Happy Quails has said, and a few other people have asked, what is the latest status on how to watch your movie, Underbelly?
Oh, it actually, Shaun, you in my material, you usually have a link.
Do you want to explain to people what the movie is, and if it's the same link, I'll happily put it in there.
I'm sure what it's referring to is Underbelly series is an Australian television series of 1.5 hour telemovies, and they featured real life cases. Some of them into the Italian marijuana growers, other than sort of notorious smugglers and whatnot. A version written by screenwriter Chris Merkser was made of, my very early days. In fact, really the film ends when I'm about sort of 24. They've got about 3 minutes of escape, which they weren't really allowed to do for copyright reasons, but it's not a bad little movie. The actor, Toby, is it Shits? Well, something but he is quite good. He doesn't entirely sound like me, but his manner was quite good. I don't think, you can imagine, Shaun, I bet you'd quibble over whoever is cast in the lead role in your biography, if it's ever filmed. Who would you recommend for yourself?
You know what? People have asked me that, and I always say that I think I would jinx it if I assumed it was going to happen. So I've not investigated it. But I have found the questions from AGG, and there are 7 of them.
Oh, well, that's well. By the way, can you search for questions if you know vaguely something about who asked them or whatever?
I'm just scrolling down through the comments. So AGG, I'll go straight to question 2. What kind of physical exercises are you both regularly doing?
Well, Shaun, I think you're more sort of physical in a way than I am, judging from the photos that very strange girlfriend.
Wanking out kidney stones, does that qualify?
Only if you get one out. And it's not stone. It's a rock. No, I don't think so. But I don't see how you'd possibly get time, Shaun, to do much regimented exercise. But I wouldn't recommend it at all, because I'm quite often up ladders and screwing things into ceilings. Isn't it true that whatever you fear most in life, I secretly don't like heights, yet so many times I was on the wall on the Bangkok prison, 20 meters up with electricity running around it. I thought to myself, no, I don't really like these heights. And yet again, even in, well, shall we say, civilian life, I was, last year, I desperately needed a camera somewhere. And I thought, well, if I don't look down, the fear won't be there. It depends who's got your back, I think, Shaun, is the answer to conquer here. If somebody's got a rope tied around you, and I have this great Albanian guy who is my rope handler. Yes, if I've got a dangerous flywire rack to get up at all, as long as Rajan has a rope in his grip, I may fall but I'll only go pendulum. That's all. I won't hit the ground. I think that counts as my exercise regime. That's for sure.
Well, I average about 9 hours of starfish sleep per night, and I wake up semi-lethargic. So I immediately jump on my yoga mat, do 10 sun salutations, and then put on Scooter's Logical song and start to do some body combat moves on my yoga mat, which gets me hyped up for the day. And then I'm just ready to get my cheese on toast down me, get onto the computer.
But Shaun, you must tell me, what is starfish sleep? Oh, I see. It's like angel wings in the snow, that kind of thing. If you can answer this in a rather legalistic way without, incriminating anybody, if somebody shares your bed, what happens when you're starfishing around the place?
The key is to have a bed big enough that you are still not impinging upon each other's starfish territory.
And I'll bet you something. People have really concentrated during the great lockdown on the quality of their sleep and their beds. Big arguments all across the land. Which is actually bigger, king size or queen size? Anybody who can answer that one, you go to the top of the charts, you'll get about 1,000 likes or lots of thumbs down if you get it wrong. I still don't know.
AGG's question 3. What has been changing in your meals since the beginning of the lockdown?
Well, for me, Shaun, very little, because despite being a general spendthrift and dug up most of my biscuit tins over the years, I make sure that whatever I do, I eat damn well. I mean, I've got 2 barbecues out back, one coal-fired and another one gas. And if it's a steak or chops, as it was tonight, though I think they went in the oven. No, really eat very, very well. I think the AG was probably talking about limited stock. And AG, it hasn't come to HP sauce on bog roll salad. I always thought that the one hangover I've got from my disreputable career is when it comes to food. I mean, 2 prison fights in all those years, and they were both over food issues. So I eat very well.
Yeah, I've been eating cheese on toast for breakfast ever since my release from prison in December of 2007. But I've varied the toppings, and presently I'm into...
Is that melted cheese? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. I mean, all I can cook is cheese on toast, which means toast, two slabs of cheddar, and then I put my pumpkin seeds on it. I put some tomato on it and some chopped bell peppers. Put it in the oven, heat it up, and I found if I wake up at like 9 o'clock, by the time I've done my exercises and done my computing, my breakfast is lunch, so I don't need to have lunch, and then I just have one meal for the rest of the day. And the first 2 weeks of lockdown, I had every single day I had Indian curry and bulgur wheat. But after 2 weeks, it started to get a bit boring. So I've got that down now to every other day. I've had to learn how to heat up oven chips and heat up veggie sausages and veggie burgers.
I tell you what, I think you could benefit from. P.J. O'Rourke, the great American satirist, he gave a guide to a gentleman living a bachelor's life and suggested decorating amounted to sitting on an orange crate in an otherwise empty room and downing a whiskey, and then with every whiskey, the room started to look better and better. Now, PJ, that was probably a good idea, but I've become something, Shaun, of a dab hand in the microwave. Exactly which instructions to ignore, which ready meals, and I'll shamelessly say M&S pretty much do the best of them. Waitrose, runners up, but don't get their brand name stuff. I've never even tried a Morrison's one. Don't like the shop, don't like anything about it. Poor people go there.
Yeah, I was initially heating up my cheese on toast in the microwave, but I found it to be a bit plasticky over
Oh,
time.
rubberizes in there.
Slow oven heating, just Waitrose
It
organic
is.
cheddar.
You can also get one of those combination microwaves, and this is all good lockdown advice. It's got a griller built in, so you run the griller for about a minute just to get it in the mood, and then you put in your bit of toast. So you pop the toast out after about 45 seconds from the pop-up toaster, put some butter on it, then your cheese, and your griller's already been going there for about a minute, so throw that in. Press the right buttons because the metal grill that you put your cheese in will explode if you put it on microwave. But
I've got a final question for you. We're going to roll AGG's questions over to next week, and if anyone else has got questions, please put them in the comments. We've gone into overtime. So, my question for you is, did you enjoy the trailer we sent you for our first ever documentary, Out of Shadows UK?
Yes, I did. But that's your question, isn't it, Shaun?
It is.
It is. Look, there's a bit of an art trailer making. Whoever did it, it was James, wasn't it?
James Esposito, Underground Films.
He did it very well, and it had me in. And what's the plan there? Are you going to do these little documentaries from time to time?
Yeah, well, James, for the past month, has just spent every single day on this. And I watched the finished product at the weekend, 90 minutes long, and it just blew me away because it's this. There was a video called Out of Shadows that went viral. It got over 13 million views quite quickly.
Wow.
Similar theme, but a US-based story. So we're doing Out of Shadows UK, inspired by Out of Shadows. And I think it has really high potential. So James right now has got it for sale on his Vimeo channel. We are going to put it free on YouTube, but we're asking people if they want to see it early to go over to Vimeo. I'll put the link in the description. And please support James because he's done this completely for free. It's £5. And
I'll pay a $5 for that.
It will incentivize James to then do one on Jimmy Savile and do one on Madeleine McCann. They're the two areas we want to go next with this documentary format.
People do like a bit of a mystery, and even though there's a lot of Madeleine McCann material out there, I think not all of it's benefited from your acerbic and deep probing as a London-based activist. So that would be good. I'd pay a $5 for that too, but pretty loose with the $5. Ask me for 10, I think about it. But how does? I'm an idiot. How do I give James his money?
Oh, so in the link in the description box below this video, it goes to James's Vimeo channel for Underground Films. You can at that link you'll see the trailer and you'll have an option to rent the movie.
PayPal or something, is it, or what?
It's through Vimeo, yeah.
Yes, but I mean the payment method.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I've never actually done that myself.
Well, I'll do it when we go our separate ways, and I'll tell you whether it's an ordeal or not next week.
And for everyone else, it's going to be out there for free in a week or two. And we just urge
that's killed it, hasn't it?
we just urge you. Well, people want to genuinely support the channel and support James.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to scam anyone, so we're letting you know it is going to be available for free in a week or two. And all we ask is that you share it far and wide, and let's get this thing going as viral as possible at a time when my channel is under attack. Let's show these people that we will not be cowed. We will spread our message far and wide, come what may.
Yes, that's true. You've never been afraid to take something on. Frankly, people, it was a certain amount. Sean put this ugly face to air when others, notably Banged Up Abroad people and National Geographic, despite all that talk of being cutting edge and we've got the dirt on the low-life crime, a producer there said, I don't know what you're worried about, David. We've had mafia people on board. Yes, sure. But so what? They're all rats anyway and finked everybody out. They want somebody who has some kind of repentance. I guess I'm repentant. should have done it longer. No, only joking there. No, that sounds like good. And so they'll go to Underground Films. That's
yeah. The link is in the description box.
Okay.
Underground Films is James's Vimeo channel. Yeah.
All right. And also, I should ask if everybody, I think by now, either doesn't care or knows quite a lot about the situation the world's in and our countries. And suggestions, please, that what would be your way out of the problem? Doesn't matter how stupid, we can do something with the worst material. So, I'd like to hear from you on that one. Okay, I would usually try and end on something positive, but looking on...
Good luck with that. It's been a particularly macabre broadcast this evening.
Oh, it's something else from Texas.
I think the Center for Anti-Digital Hate has caused us to go down a macabre path for some reason.
It has. You
have a particularly ethereal glow about you as well.
It's... I think I might abandon this camera for another one. I'll ask for recommendations later. But did you know, I'll just end with this, that...
Whereas I have a halo.
Yes, it's certainly got a glow to it, like a cue ball in a parlor game. But that's... no, it's part of the look. It is part of it. Did you know that in Texas... abortions have not been allowed to be performed because that procedure is not considered essential? Well, say that to some poor 14-year-old being knocked up by her uncle. See what she thinks is essential. Well, give birth to some inbred cretin from Uncle Jimmy will fix it. Well, so you're right, Shaun. No real good news. But we thrive on that, don't we?
We do. We should do a alternative stand-up tour, I think, once we get off lockdown and see how that goes down.
True. Touring is kind of gone, but we just have to make sure, well, I do, that I'm out of tomato range, but people have very good tour.
The thing with these stand-up guys, they have a script. It's the same show every single night. Yeah. We could just get up and just have no script whatsoever and just talk like this.
Oh, yes. I think...
And it would be different every night. Everywhere we went, it would be different every night.
In fact, don't you think we'd have a little clerk of followers that would, not paid by us, except in the rewards of being entertained, saying, no, you should have been here for Wednesdays. They're a bit off their game tonight. I don't know what it is. Apparently being hounded in the motel room.
Puck's Doctor's Clark followers or Clark of the Grim Reaper followers.
No, there could be quite somebody. There was a great Frank. I'll tell you what. I'll just show you my toy of the week.
All bearers.
It's a miniature old AM radio, AM/FM radio. It's what you take when the world's going to end. Those little things that you'll have to have. I'll see if I can come up with another cute one next week. All right, then.
Slip some cyanide in it.
It does have a little stash holder. Everything does. Okay, people. See you soon.
Thank you for watching. Please put your questions and comments below. And like I said earlier, if you want hours and hours of free entertainment, David McMillan's 8 podcasts, 2 to 3 hours long each. You could spend a whole weekend just watching David, listening to his voice, absorbing.
You'd never find any activity after having binge-watched my stuff with Shaun. No other activity would have quite the same effect.
Falling asleep, absorbing his mellifluous tones.
Yes, or learning to loathe somebody in a way you've never really had before. It'd be passion, nonetheless.
You could also click over to David's channel and subscribe and watch his stuff there. Or if you are of the literary leaning, you could read his books, Escape and Unforgiving Destiny. So, adios for now, viewers. We'll see you next week.
Click. Shaun, Oh, not too bad. Some listeners' questions at the end, and some discussion of blood groups and the genes, the likelihood. I mean, can you look back on photographs of people who have succumbed to COVID-19 and see any similarities? Any similarities to you? Are you worried about it? Well, watch another one of these and you just won't give a toss. See you next time.